All right, hi everybody. I'm Maryann. Thank you for joining us today. What we'll be doing in this panel today is kind of gazing into the crystal ball, into the future a little bit, and imagining what the digital cabins of tomorrow are going to look like. Or maybe more accurately, what will they be able to do for us? What will they be able to do for airlines? And how much of that are they going to do intelligently or autonomously on their own? We're also going to talk about how different players in the industry, for example, the hardware providers, the software providers, the creators of all the great applications can collaborate together so that the experiences of tomorrow are smarter, more seamless, and just better for everyone. So let's get going. First, here to my left, we've got Ralph Wagner, who's the co-founder and CEO at Axinom, a company that's helping aerospace companies to overcome digital challenges in a rapidly changing technology landscape. Thanks, Ralph, for joining us. Next to Ralph, we have Mats Omri Schumacher, who is the head of product management at AirQ. AirQ is a joint venture between LG Electronics and Lufthansa Technik, taking digital transformation of the aircraft cabin to a new level. Welcome, Mats.
Thank you.
Next to Mats, we've got Duncan Jackson, president at FlightPath 3D, makers of the industry's #1 map technology. Welcome, Duncan.
Thank you, Maryann.
And David Pook, Vice President Customer Experience at Burrana, a leader in IFE and cabin technology, and a Crystal Cabin Award finalist this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to ask each of you to just sort of set the scene by telling us a little bit about your companies, your core competencies, and what you've been up to for the last 12 months in particular. Ralph, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I would say, first of all, to the company. So we are in the aviation business for around about 13 years now. We started with wireless IFE. We started with the first utilization of personal devices within the streaming ecosystem within the cabin. And nowadays we are working for many players in this industry, for service providers as well, integrators as well as for airlines directly. So we are a pure software company, so we do not have any hardware, we do not touch hardware, and we are developing over the course, I would say, of the last 4 or 5 years, we are going more and more into the direction of creating platforms within software platforms within the cabin that allow services, software services to run and to interconnect with IoT devices, with passengers, with crews. So basically creating a kind of if you want to see it like a cloud in the aircraft so that you can easily deploy software, content, and so on. So this is what we were doing, and we are intensifying this more and more and bringing this to the market. And yeah, that's basically what we're here for.
Thank you. Mats?
Yes, so we at AirQ, we have the mission or the vision to turn a rigid IFE asset really into an open digital business platform. And especially the last 12 months were very dominated by our very first STC, by our very first retrofit that we got, because our product Arena is now flying for a couple of months on a Discover Airlines A320. So that was obviously the thing that we were most busy with in the last months, and are happy to see it finally flying now. To put it in a nutshell, what we at AirQ are doing is mainly to put the airlines into the driver's seat when it comes to flexibly shaping and configuring their onboard offering, if they want to, up to a daily basis. We want to enable, or we want to open the aircraft cabin by deploying a truly open platform that enables airlines, but also third-party application and service providers to develop apps and services against our platform to enhance passenger experience, to reduce total cost of ownership for airlines, not the latest by creating ancillary revenue cases, for example, through enhancing the platform with more and more services.
All right. Thank you very much. Duncan, your turn.
Cool. Well, thanks to AIX and yourself today, Maryann, for having us here. So we're the Inflight map guys. I'm sure lots of you have used our product flying on your aircraft. Our mission is to guide every flying passenger, and we enable approximately 400 million passenger journeys every single year. Airlines are our lifeblood. We have about 80 airline customers, but we also are in business aviation, VVIP presidential. We work with helicopters, and we also work with airports in their sort of digital strategies. So we get a lot of influence from different customers, and we're able to bring that to market and bring it to bear. What we're working on in the last 12 months, one thing that excites us is we're adding intelligence to the IFE. So we've been working on an in-flight AI flight companion that you can think of as your digital concierge, that senior flight attendant that can answer all your questions, as well it has knowledge about what's happening in your destination and at the airport. So we want to answer questions like, can I get vegan food at Terminal 2? Where's the Uber pickup point? What am I flying over? And so we've built this channel that can work offline in a very creative way and also online. And AI, you're hearing about it all the time right now. We're actually getting it done. It's flying on 500 aircraft and people are really excited. So I think we'll be on a couple of thousand aircraft with that product by the end of next year. And the second thing is we're trying to push the passenger experience much more into a broader set of demographics. So we built a kids map with gamification and games and Easter eggs. We're working on accessibility, so high contrast maps that allow for the partially sighted, an audio experience so you can sit and listen to the actual flight experience and what I'm flying over and when I land from an audio capacity. And that's what's going on right now.
Thanks, Duncan. David,
All
what
right.
have you been up to?
Yes. So for anyone who doesn't know, Burrana has been in the market for about 5 years under that name, but it's gone back about 50 years actually in legacy. A combination of the old Rocco Collins IFE group and then the DigiCore folks as well. So coming together about 5 years ago. So we have a legacy installation of the Paves overhead system, Paves on demand in-seat IFE, as well as portables. And we've just recently moved into in-seat power as well. And that's been our kind of our growth area for us. We're now line fit offerable at Airbus. In fact, in the last 12 months, we finished our first set of installations at Airbus and are now in the catalog on the A320 family. And we're working on the other OEMs now as we speak. So that'll be the next big thing for us. One of the areas that kind of ties in, you're probably wondering why an in-seat power system is even in this same conversation. But we're the only one to collect usage data on the power system to know the types of devices, how long they're being charged for, how much power they're drawing, and we can then really infer some interesting information from that. So we'll talk about that, I guess, shortly.
Smart power. Love it. Right, I'm going to stay with you, David. We'll come back down the line. I'm hoping everybody...
Wrong side.
Yeah. Take a big sip. I'm hoping everybody can share sort of their vision of what the digital cabin of tomorrow looks like, and how are the systems that each type of provider here on the panel bring to the picture. How are they working together? How are they interoperating with one another? How are they all sort of combining to create a great experience?
Right. Yeah, and I think that is the key question for our industry is how do we bring all these pieces together? We will know what passengers' devices they have with them and how they're using them, and maybe interacting with the onboard IFE if that's necessary, or their Wi-Fi system. But how do we then connect that information with the information of how they're using applications and content and other interactions, so that we can bring all that together and create some intelligent story, some analytics that says, how do I understand this passenger uniquely and bring something of value to them that maybe somebody else wouldn't be able to do without that information? So there's that, a lot of data, but what do you do with that data to make it intelligent and to make it useful? Because what ultimately I think you want to do is make that passenger feel served and understood, and bringing them something unique, an experience, and really ultimately to provide increased passenger satisfactions.
Thank you for that. Duncan, what are your thoughts on the futuristic cabin?
So the first comment I'll make is, I would say 30% of all you guys in the audience today will probably take a vertical takeoff and landing flight in your lifetime. Some kind of short form mobility, a hop from an airport to some regional hub within your lifetime. So I think VTOL is going to be a part of the future. Certainly not in the next 10 years it's going to be that prolific, but if we're setting a tone for what the picture looks like, that's absolutely going to happen in our lifetimes. In terms of a more shorter time frame, I think there are 3 things that are going to define the cabin experience. The first is it's going to become way more immersive. We're hearing about virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. The first formations of this we played with augmented reality of a virtual cockpit window seat, that synthetic vision that we put inside the map. But now we've got the headsets from Apple Vision Pro, Meta glasses. If you think about the first iPod that came out, it's kind of clunky, a bit heavy, the weight wasn't great. That's kind of what these new systems feel like. They're not really that lightweight and usable, but it's an indication of what's happening for you to get a full cinematic experience. If you go to our booth, you'll be able to see not only the flight experience, but you'll come back, look at the aircraft in full 3D, you'll look from left to right, you'll look around the aircraft, and you can actually head out to the destination, and that's all with an Apple Vision Pro. It's a proof of concept right now, but it's definitely happening in the lifetime. The second thing that's going to happen is it's going to be way more intelligent in the cabin. This might not even be with airline cabin systems, it might just be what happens with consumer internet technology, where you're going to have way more information at your fingertips. We're the last generation right now that you'll have to explain to grandkids or kids that we used to go to Google, type something in, and we'd get a list of web pages that you had to go to, open up and try and find the answer to something, versus putting it in and getting the answer. So 5 years from now, you guys look like a digital library. You walked in, found the book, and had to say, is it the right book? No. Is it the right book? No. That kind of technology that's just leapfrogging in the industry right now will be brought into the cabin with connectivity, with a device, making it more pertinent. So that's actually going to happen. You're going to have a more intelligent flight. How do we provide that from a systems integration, take flight data, airline information, loyalty, package that together? It's going to be super cool. And I think that's coming really quickly. And that's a software enablement, so we can move more quickly on that. And the last thing I'll point to is, I think with the ability to load applications, stream content, connect them, load them on your systems, you'll be able to enable new business models and try new things. I think you're going to see a QVC in the sky. QVC is based on a perishable amount of inventory in a short time frame. The flight is a community on the aircraft, or a group of aircraft, or all people flying, offers and time-based things in the sky. You'll see gambling based on flight information. I sit with my daughter, I hold her hand, and we try and squeeze each other's hand when you touch down, but you can't do it early, and it's the first one to get it. Gambling on if you get the precise landing time with minutes and seconds. These new business models are going to emerge, and you can play with these things. So I think we're going to head in a direction where, I'm not telling you those two things are going to happen, but the ability to load applications and try new things based on community and flight, we're going to enable that more with the sort of things that Ralph's doing, and the infrastructure and the open platforms that you're doing. So.
Wow, thanks, Duncan. There's a lot to work with in there that we can come back to later, so thank you for that.
Really exciting. We didn't even talk about screens and mobile screen technology. I have Meta glasses here right now that I can put on, and I'm going to say, what am I looking at? And it will tell me a room full of people in an audience. I had my mum wearing them at the weekend looking at plants. What am I looking at? And it's telling me it's a rhodiosia plant, or it's a petunia. There's no reason you can't look out the window. What am I looking at? And it will tell me the mountain range. So it's here.
It's very exciting. I feel like Mats is eager to chime in
there
now.
were so
I
many
can see
points
him
there. I was
agreeing
like,
with
yes,
a lot of
I
what
do
you
agree.
said.
I do agree, and that's also the beauty, basically, that we're trying to achieve with opening up the aircraft cabin, for example, for a flight path 3D and your use cases. And on top of the experience for the passenger becoming more immersive in the future, one important aspect is also that I believe that it's becoming way more personalized than it currently is, right? Because what you see mostly with IFEs at the moment is that it's basically a one-fits-all solution. And all the passengers get to see the same experience. Of course, there are use cases where you may be greeted already with your name, but other than that, the experience is mostly not yet at least tailored to your needs. And I'm not talking about yet to connecting IFEs with loyalty programs, frequent flyer programs, the travel IDs passengers may have from the airline already, but this is also coming in the future. But I'm also talking about the system itself, the platform in the aircraft cabin being able to tailor the experience to the passenger by, for example, consuming data, behavioral patterns, data that comes in from onboarding surveys, so that the system starts to learn whether someone is on a business trip or traveling with family. And also by interconnecting all the different applications and services, what Duncan basically mentioned is we can also think about extending that so that a passenger does not need to ask anymore where to find vegan food, but through the passenger having ordered a vegan meal on the aircraft, and the system can also nudge the passenger or recommend the passenger to places where they get vegan food on the airport or at their holiday destination. So that the applications and services that you have on board, if you have an open platform, can actually learn from each other. So that the data between them is available. And not only that airlines then on ground can also analyze them in order to adapt their onboard offering, to shape it, maybe route-based, maybe based on the passenger's nationality or language, because you may want to nudge American passengers more to Hollywood blockbusters in your content library, whereas you want to nudge Japanese-speaking passengers more to Japanese movie things. Or when there is something up like a certain season, like we are going to have in Europe here with the Euro 24 football tournament, that you have a chance to greet your passengers accordingly, because you already learned that they are interested into football, because they, I don't know, have watched a football documentary on board. And that can also then be tailored to the passengers' needs, and most importantly, airlines can start understanding more how their offerings, their services, their applications are performing on board, so that they can adapt their offerings flexibly.
How interested would you say airlines are in this sort of sophisticated future vision? I feel like some airlines might sit and listen to you and be like, whoa, 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 buddy, half our IFEs break all the time. Like, we need to get, the screens don't work sometimes. We need to get past that problem.
It's very interesting. It very depends on the airline you're talking to. Some of the more conservative airlines, I would say, you start seeing that it starts rotating in their heads, like, oh God, it sounds great, but I don't have the people and I don't have the processes to do that. And the more innovative airlines, they are really up for it, because they are really waiting for the point in time where they can actually get sophisticated data, only when it comes to media reports, for example, so that they get things like play-through rate, drop-off rate, and so on and so forth, because this is what they are really interested in, but this is basically only the start. So the media consumption and how well a certain movie that you are paying high license fees for is performing is very intuitive, yet most of the airlines don't get that sophisticated data, and most importantly in a timely manner. So long story short, airlines are very interested in that. How they adapt their processes for that, that's on a different sheet.
Gotcha. All right, Ralph, and I know you're sitting here saying we can help all of this happen. We can help all of these systems communicate with each other. So
we can. But let me share our light on that, because I think I know we are talking about IFE, we are talking about passengers, and we are talking about also the entertainment piece of it. But I would, from a pure software perspective, it doesn't make a difference if you're talking with a passenger or with an IoT device. So if you are interested in how your oven is doing or how your passenger is doing or how whatever your lavatory is doing, etc., you want to get this data, or how your power plug is doing. So if your power plugs are all, because this is connected to your passenger, if he's happy, if he can use the power plug. So what you have is you have an infrastructure of a lot of information in the future. You have your passengers, you have your IoT devices, you have your crew, and all of these entities are producing data. So in the end, you need to think about how do you collect this data and how you make more out of it by connecting these dots. So, and part of these dots you do need to connect within the cabin. Okay, you may have in the future such a big open pipe which is 100% reliable to the ground that you can integrate the cloud, but right now you can't do that. So what you need to think about is how do you have an infrastructure within the aircraft that allows you to deploy services that actually interact with your passenger, interact with your IoT, interact with your crew, and that can also interact within each other. So you do have initiatives like a CSMIM, the AIX standard that is coming up now, where you define how do actually the services talk to each other, so that the connectivity provider to the IoT device, to your seat, to your can all communicate on a standardized way. That's one thing. But the other thing is where we can help, where we are engaged in, is how to get this data down to the ground, how to get messages down to the ground, how to get this up to the aircraft independent of the application. So if it's entertainment, if it's information for your power plug, if it's information for your map, or if it's for your passenger or for your oven or for whatever you have on board, and the other way around. So this is something what we are doing, and it's all about utilizing the data you have. And this will be crucial. And I think who is doing that? If it's the airline in the end, or if it's a service provider, if it's an integrator, if it's an Airbus or Boeing, I don't know. But I think everybody should be interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. David, let's go back to the RISE solution. What sort of data are these? Well, tell us a little more about the power solution, because I know it's really advanced and it is collecting a lot of data about passengers that somebody like Ralph could ingest and feed into another system. Right.
So we have an actual data connection to every individual USB port on the aircraft that we service, and so we know what time the devices are connected and disconnected, how much power is being drawn. That we can infer from that if it's an iPad or a phone or a laptop. So we really can collect that type of information, not only from a maintenance perspective, right? So we can inform the airline in advance that there's a potential problem with a port, so they can get it fixed before passengers have to report it. Mm-hmm. You have traditional, sometimes ports will wear out and things will fall out. Well, we can detect it, that it's only connected for a few seconds and keeps coming out, that port needs to be addressed. So there's a lot of maintenance things that you can address with that. But I think ultimately, if we can infer that we know that the passenger has an iPad or some other, whatever particular device they have, and then that can be associated with IFE data and a seat number, and then their preferences, and then their loyalty program, I think that's where you start creating some additional creativity and magic that could potentially happen for the passenger, right? You're bringing all these pieces. I can't do a lot of crazy, interesting things just with information about the power system. Yes, I can help the airlines make it more efficient, make it understand that they're using more power, less power, which routes, right? That's kind of standard stuff. But then how do we then augment that? And 1 + 1 is 3 by doing all these other things together. So,
Duncan looks like he wants to say something.
Yeah, first of all, I observe that airlines are drowning in data and starved of insights.
Right.
There's just this pipe of data that's just coming at them, and you need something that's actionable. You need actual intelligence that makes sense. Are there usage of ports? How can I optimize it? Makes a ton of sense on the power side. From an in-flight cabin experience, I think the more you can get closer to an airline's core business model and add value, the more ROI it is. So it's either maintenance and saving performance, reducing gas drag, etc. On the passenger side, I'm in the business of revenue and driving revenue. I want insights in terms of where's that passenger interested in going. Loyalty is massively important. We put the route map on the seat back, replacing that fold-out magazine of the centerfold of all the routes and stuff. We built a digital version of that. That has insights into future potential flight demand, so it's predictive analytics that's being now fed to fleet and route planning departments saying which routes are trending and so on. We have the hashtags and all the destination content. We loaded our video platform. It's Instagram Reels. It feels like Instagram Reels. It's destination Reels. We put
Does that show flight prices as well if somebody's investigating a route? If the aircraft is connected and they've got like a live
So people just want to figure and stare at that map, so they can now build the route. It's whimsical. It plays it and it tells you the flight time, and then you can click on it and go and book a route.
Right.
With the destination content, you can explore and get lost in this video platform. Well, we know that TikTok's all about the data and analytics. Everybody's addicted to that thing, 20 minutes a day, half an hour, 2 hours if it's my daughter. And in flight now, we put that on Southwest. It's a third of the time spent in flight in the entertainment system is in that platform. And all we're doing is who's tracking family-friendly content, who's looking at Cancun. That's data that's being fed back, that's true value. That needs to be pulled out and insightful. I can't give them just a bunch of tags that's a ton of data, that's a fire hose, that's meaningless. And great, I'm just my little niche, so I have to then feed that, format it, structure it, and pass that data into their data warehouse within their systems. But yeah, I think there's a lot of unactionable data, and the key is to say, how do I get a meaningful return on this and make it really insightful?
All right, one of the questions I have here is for everybody. And it's how are you making your products smarter? And I know that we could probably all talk a long time about this. David, I feel like we've done yours. Did you want to add anything else about the...
I think really there's a little bit of a debate in the power market about do we keep AC outlets or not, right? They tend to be on a decline, and are people really charging laptops? Do I need to put 60 watt outlets in my system? So the basic questions of what do I need to plan for my future fleet, we can answer today by looking at how it's currently used, right? So we're intelligently analyzing the usage and deciding how we need to do that. And we can also then intelligently balance the usage of the power within the aircraft. So we don't have to build a system that can do 60 watts simultaneously to every passenger, right? It doesn't have to be sized that way. It'd be too big, consume too much power. We can intelligently manage that network, and so we can serve everybody and get all their devices charged without having to maximize the size of it.
All right, who wants to go next on that one?
I would go. It's basically what I teased already before. It's making it possible for the applications and services on board to learn from each other. So not only learn upon past flight legs, but learn from each other already during the flight. So I gave the example of the passenger who ordered the vegan meal that can then be nudged to vegan places at their holiday destination. And there are tons of use cases like this. So system learning that someone is, I don't know, a Taylor Swift fan because he or she is listening to Taylor Swift albums. And then you're on your route to New York, and and the airline has partnered with a ticketing agency, for example, and has an exclusive partnership with them. So that imagine you're en route to New York and you're a big Taylor Swift fan and have the opportunity to in-flight purchase a very exclusive Taylor Swift concert ticket at Madison Square Garden, because the system has nudged you into that direction because it has learned that you are a Taylor Swift fan. And there are like really lots of use cases through which the experience will get smarter and also, as I referred to earlier, more personalized to the actual person that sits in the seat in front of the screen.
That sounds cool. I would love it if I could be somehow recommended something really cool, but to do based on my interests when I'm going somewhere. Because a lot of times when you're planning a trip, you think you're going to plan the whole thing out, and before you know, it's time to go to the airport, and you're like, oh my God, or like I don't even know how to get to the hotel.
No. Exactly. And that's the beauty, especially on the long haul flights, right? You have all the time in the world. You have all the time in the world, and this is why there is a very high potential in order to motivate passengers to actually engage with those systems more. Like Flightpath 3D is a great example for that, because it's an on-top experience of the traditional, okay, I have my movie library and I watch 3 movies in a row, but other than that, I would not be engaging with the system. And through those engagement use cases, you can actually drive revenues, because only through engagement you can unlock all those revenue-based use cases.
So the
Rob?
Go. I was just going to build on that.
I'm saving you for last, Duncan, on this one.
So I think when we're talking about smarter, I think all what you said, like, I think it's really important to point out, you do need to know your passenger. So all the loyalty programs that are out there do need to get into the cabin. So some of the airlines are already doing that, but you need to have this really seamlessly integrated. First of all, independent what kind of applications you're using. So if you're using it to check your power stuff, or for connectivity, or for your IFE, or for shopping stuff, or for communicating with the crew, basically you need to be authenticated as a passenger within the aircraft. So if you want to make something smarter for me as a passenger, you basically need to have my tokens, my data permanently available when I'm connected. However, I'm connected to the seat back screen or to my personal device, or just because I'm sitting on a seat, that you know where I'm sitting. Right. So I think that is important. And what we see is all those loyalty program applications, or many of those, are in the hands of actually the airline IT. So what we see as our mission is actually enabling the IT departments of the airlines to actually build the authentication models also on board. So what they actually do on the ground to allow to be permanently authenticated and to see your next trip, or to see rebooking options, or whatever you have, choose your meal, basically replicate that within the cabin, and allow also airline IT to, what our experience is, they often deal with all kind of ground infrastructure. But actually what I think is important is that they are enabled also to build their applications, what they do on the ground, do this in the cabin and connect that.
Okay, thank you. Duncan, I'll get you to answer, and then we'll go to audience questions, if there's any.
Cool. Completely agree with what both of you guys said. I think intelligence needs to be in the context of the flight, the route, the airline, and the passenger. That's the most important part of intelligence. It also needs to be frictionless. It needs to be so seamless and easy to have it. So I believe you need to give permission or get permission from the passenger to have a conversation. So I'm going to feed you some information. You're landing in 2 hours and 20 minutes, or you're flying just due east of the Grand Canyon, it's out the window. I'm going to feed you some information, or something around loyalty that says this is the number of air miles you've got, and you could actually do this with them in your destination. And in return for that, you can start putting promotions in there, and you can start putting other things in front of the audience that's relevant to that individual passenger. I think that can be done with intelligence in an offline environment, so that it has to operate without any connectivity. We need to make sure that intelligence, if you're going to use AI, which we are obsessed with right now, doesn't hallucinate, isn't costing a lot of API calls. It's also whatever you build will be redundant within 12 months, the pace at which Meta, Gemini with Google, OpenAI, and if you listen to what Sam Altman's moving, it's moving relatively quickly. So intelligence to us right now, to combat this kind of rapid elevation, is making an app that is native to AI, that it can plug different systems in and work with whatever the airline's descriptions are. The other piece of intelligence is you need to garner information from that conversation and actually pass that back to the airline. So the idea of trending routes, what people are interested in doing, that's all being pulled off the airline and put in an insightful fashion. So I think that's what intelligence is. And then I heard today when I was having this conversation with one of the big 4 airlines in North America, they said actually what you're doing is intelligent in the way that you're partitioning, separating the experience for mobile versus seatback. So I'm watching the movie, but I'm able to log in through the Wi-Fi portal and track what's going on my phone, so you've separated it. But then there's a synchronization and a handshake that what's happening on the seat back, I QR code and bang, I'm into the video guide on the portal where I can save, share, post and purchase. And so that synchronization is happening, and then the integration is smart and intelligent, where you can control the seat back by actually using your phone and navigate the map because you're syncing it by a map cast. So these are what we think of kind of intelligence, and we learn from airlines telling us what it takes to be that.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Duncan. Do we have any questions from the audience? No? Yes. This one's planted. Who are you?
Sure. It's Peter. I'm actually with FlightPath 3D. However, the question is really for the panel. Duncan, you could probably start because you were mentioning that a lot of airlines are data rich and insight scarce. I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit on that. And then for the rest of you, Ralph, Mats, and Dave, if that's also what you're seeing, that'd be great.
So Peter is day 5 with FlightPath 3D, so that's quite the tee up there. Yeah, look, it's just all about qualifying the data to something that has a very clear ROI. And so I was explaining there's a lot of it out there. I think usage rates, you don't need 60 amps at every output, right? So you can drop that down. That data makes it so much more valuable on weight and power and purchase decisions. Everything you've said about integrating loyalty, nothing happens in the future without embedding more of a loyalty experience. The more I can find out about you in the context of you're an American Express Plus passenger or you're one of our frequent flyers, that is the context that requires an open system, the ability to do these plugins of data sets. Just think of what's the return on investment that's just not a ton more data. Make it
because
actionable.
if you don't do that, you will lose your passenger to Google or whomever in the end, right? So
Yeah.
like in automotive, basically.
Yep.
No? So
Yep.
that's a core.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's basically not as Duncan said, not only dumping a whole new data lake up to airlines, but also supporting them ideally, automatically, and intelligently already with what that actually means. So how do I act upon that? And this is also something that, as we said, requires the cabin to be open for these things, and also most importantly that airlines get the most important data that have a high return on invest if you act upon them in a timely manner, and not only after 2 weeks when the next maintenance slot is and you can send someone with a USB stick in order to get the data dumped.
All right. Any other questions from the audience today? Vimal.
Hi, my name is Vimal. I'm with Commercial Excellence Partners. I think I know most of you on the stage. Thanks for a fascinating discussion. I just wanted to get your thoughts on where we're heading, not specifically with AI, but with the idea of natural language processing. Because I think when we talk about data, and for sure we end up talking a lot about data, we tend to think of it as ones and zeros and numbers and just loads of that. But I think what's democratized or what's going to provide passenger autonomy is really this idea of natural language processing, where the system can talk back to you as a passenger and you can talk back to the system, and of course I say the system, in natural language, right? So it's a very sort of and this kind of goes back to your point about the concierge, Duncan. So I just wondered if you have any thoughts about that in terms of this whole discussion around data and the future of the aircraft cabin.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the future. Have something like a digital concierge, have something like a digital travel assistant that can automatically, once you engage with it, come up with an itinerary for your holiday destination, maybe also already for your flight, because it nudges you to, okay, this could be a good movie for you, then I would recommend this for you to have for lunch, then you can relax a bit with that TV series, have those snacks, maybe you are interested in that documentary. This way of engaging with the system will definitely come within the next.
I have it
years
on the aircraft
Yeah.
with what I take with me now.
Yeah.
So natural language processing at its gut level, there is a race with hundreds of billions of dollars being put into this thing. And I'm fascinated for the big investments that's going on. You've got Microsoft with its Copilot infrastructure. What you've seen with Gemini and the new VO announcements from Google are just outstanding. ChatGPT, you guys have all used it. Your kids are doing their homework on it. GPT-O just came out. That went multimodal, which is omni-channel or omni-network. The idea that it can go from text to video, image to text. I can sit on the plane and do incredible things with that right now. I can literally program my application and device to say, and I did this, which is, when you hear French, translate it into English. When you hear English, translate it into French. Do you understand? Oui, is what it said. So it instantly answered me, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. It's almost like a joke, but no, it's actually what I asked it to do. So I got real-time translation skills, and that's available right now at an application layer. From where we're going with this thing, we are at infrastructure that needs another couple of years to be built out with this kind of race to build this best infrastructure. We haven't seen the applications built on top of this. It's a querying tool right now. It's absolutely at the nosebleed beginning of its journey. I think we're 18 months away from seeing the first super app get built, but that's going to be Friendster. And then you're going to see MySpace, and then that's going to get collapsed by Facebook. And we have a couple of years before these things start to take place. We're still at the infrastructure level. I just built an application, and I built all the metadata from all of the airports, scraping information about car parking, figuring out what the menus were for every restaurant so I could ask the vegan food options, because I went through all the menu systems. I plugged in FlightAware's data to know all of the flight information of real time, and then I took OAG schedule data so I could literally ask this thing, what flight's available to Cancun on Friday from Philadelphia? What's the food availabilities there for vegan in Titu? I can demo it. If you grab me after this, I'll show you on my phone. I built that for 6 months. And we put proprietary data. We always talk about what's your private data lake, how do you build a moat around what you're doing? Well, Perplexity, which is a really advanced AI tool, which Google just copied, and with what they released, put that out of business. Perplexity could answer all of those questions natively for what I put together in a private database. You think about ServiceNow and all these agents that are doing call center answering of questions, and agents, any agent that's ever asked what you do on a website and it's helping you automate things from flight bookings to any queries, they all just got commoditized with the latest releases of these platforms. So the technology is evolving rapidly, and it's learning in itself because it's got machine learning. So the advancements are incredible. You've only seen language-based. This multimodal that just came out that says, I can put these on now, I can ask what I'm looking at, and it's going to tell me about Bismarck water by talking to Hey Meta, and that is visual, image to text. So I'm really excited about accessibility in terms of we're putting a feed together in flight that will tell you where you're at, all of the flight information. It's talking to you visually. That's our first AI feed. It's the flight companion. My forecast is it'll be on 2,000 aircraft by this time next year at the rate of deployment. The exciting thing for me is I just sat down with some of the accessibility folks from an airline, and they're like, we're designing how to make that into something for the blind so it'll talk to you. And that's text to audio. And they've just asked, how about we do the PA announcements? Because that's already doing audio into text and display it for those that are deaf. Because when it comes on right now, it just goes, announcement. They don't know what's happening. It doesn't tell you what's going on. So these are the things that are super exciting that this technology just does in its sleep. And again, Friendster's not even come yet. We're waiting for MySpace, and these super apps are going to be incredible. Just watch what's going to happen.
I would like to mention one point here, because when we are talking about the AI piece, the question is, how do you make use out of AI for your company?
Totally.
So,
when it's rapidly developing.
So when we are talking about getting data points and collecting data, in the end, you don't want to, yes, I love to plan my trip, but if I plan my trip with a model that is basically super neutral, then this model is actually not know a lot about me, but my airline knows a lot about me. So basically the airline needs to learn, how do I combine the data that I collect with language models? And I think that is something which is super critical to understand. So how do you actually collect your data, make use of your data, and combine this with a language model so that I can say, I want to fly from whatever, Frankfurt to Seattle, and this thing knows from the airline side all my preferences and uses language models to interact with me in a way that I do not need to select things and so on, because it knows where I want to stop over. I hate JF, whatever, airline. And so on. So basically this combination, to understand that, how to do that, how to process it, how to use your own data and how to combine it with AI so that you create your own benefit as a company. That's a critical thing.
What you've just described, and I'm not hearing this as nomenclature, is applications that are AI native. I'm building an application with the ability to plug in natural language that can do that. I can already make an assumption that it will just translate anything I want and spit it out in audio, spit it out in text, it will create the movie, it'll give me the full script, whatever. So it's an AI native application, which is what you're talking about, and that's the only way to manage this evolution, and it'll be on planes if you've got connectivity. It's answering that stuff anyway.
Wow, good question, Vimal. That really got them going. Fantastic stuff, guys. I think we're out of time for this session today. I'm sure all the panelists would be happy to answer any further questions individually if people have more. And I just want to thank all you guys so much for such a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Maryann, for hosting, and for all of you chaps on our panel for your insight and your intelligence. Can I just say a big thank you to you for coming along and joining this session over your lunch break. I know you're all very busy, so I do appreciate it. We are going to resume at 2 o'clock, so in about 15 minutes, where we're going to be looking at in-flight entertainment, a captive audience. And I'd like to thank our silver sponsor, Axinom, for their support for putting on this session. Thank you.